Everybody, this is Patty Sliney, Handy Quilter National Educator, and we had a very interesting question come up on one of our social media Facebook groups yesterday and today. One of the members, Dorothy Arnold, was trying to figure out how to fit in a point-to-point design in a sashing that's on point on her quilt top. And let's see if I can show you a picture of it. That's what it looks like. And so she was trying to fit the design into this blue dot sashing and trying to get everything to kind of connect and look nice. And so I have to really congratulate her on her persistency. She worked and worked and worked with several designs, and so she came up with one that she liked. It was it's our coneflower design. So I want to show you how probably the best way to try to work a design into an area on your quilt that looks like that. That sashing on point. So she gave me the measurements. The long edge, outer edge was 10 inches, and the sashing was 1 5/8 inch thick wide. So I'm going to go ahead and mock something up here so you can kind of get an idea. So I'm going to pull up, and I have my grid on. I'm going to turn it off in a little bit, but I want to kind of show you perspective just so you know, because I want you to think about this when you're standing in front of your machine. Everybody's got a different machine, different throat space accommodation. So all those things you just kind of have to think about when you are creating a design like this. So let me mock something up for you right now. I'm going to resize this to 10 inches because she said the long side of her, whoop, there we go, long side of her block, the long side was 10 inches. Even though it's on point, I just wanted her to measure the long side because on point is going to be different. And then I'm going to create another square in here because I want to give you a visual. So let me duplicate that, and then I'm going to resize the second one. Modify, resize. Got my lock on. If I make it 7, turn my grid off so you can see I've got 2 squares now, and this sashing is about 1.5 inches. Hers is 1 5/8 inches. So I would rather be smaller than bigger because that should get her coneflower design to fit in here. So now let's rotate these because her block is on point. So I'm going to go to modify. I'm going to turn my lock button off. Don't leave that on in your resize. That can affect resizing an area. So just a little note. Let's rotate this one and then go back to my workspace tab. If you don't use your right sidebar workspace tab, when you're using Pro Stitcher and you're doing intermediate things, it becomes indispensable because it allows you to very easily select between designs without having to touch, or click, click on your screen. So let's rotate that one. Let's go back. I am already on Modify Rotate, so I'm going to pick my Rotate tab and I'm going to rotate that one. And then I'm going to refresh my screen. I'm turn my grid back on so you can see the size difference now. So now our block that has a 10-inch side, when you're actually looking at this on the quilt top, because remember, it's on point, now this becomes 14 inches tall. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 inches tall. If she has an Amara 20, this will just fit into her throat space. So she could try to complete a design that's all connected like a ring, a diamond ring of designs, and still be able to stitch it out successfully in her throat space. So that's why I wanted to leave the grid on for you so you could see. But I'm going to turn it off because it'll make it a lot easier for us to see what's going on. Now, I'm also going to put an area around my outer square. So I want to make sure it's selected. I know it's selected because it's black on my screen. And when I go to my right sidebar workspace tab, it's selected. So let's go to area and let's click on rubber band area. That's going to rubber band an area around the design that was selected. So this is my mock-up I'm going to use for simulation. This gives you an idea of what the sashing looks like. And I might need to use this area to position my designs using modify align. Remember, modify and align, that tool will align a design that you have on the screen in relation to an area. If you don't have an area created, this button won't even be active. You won't even be able to use it. Remember, if you have tools or functions that are grayed out and you wonder why, it's because you have not met the criteria for that tool or function to be able to be used. And in this case, you must have an area for a line to be active. I have an area, says so right here. When I select it, it turns teal. And I'm going to deselect everything right now. And so that tells me a line is going to be something that I could use. All right, so now let's go pull our design in. She wanted to use the cornflower corner design. So it was this cornflower 2 corner design, and I'll show you where it is. If I go to open our 1PS designs and I go to the corners, it's in here, and it's the cornflower 2 right here. This was the design that she was trying to use, and she said she needed to resize it. And so I went ahead and I did resize it. So, but I resized it when I rotated it. So, because I want it to fit in here. So let's go ahead and let's rotate this. Modify, rotate. I'm going to rotate it once clockwise 45 degrees. I'm going to baseline that modification. When I baseline it, that gives me a clean, fresh, unaltered design. No modifications, no edits, just as though it were digitized this way. So no extra commands that ProStitcher needs to deal with. So it's now a clean, brand new, unaltered design. It literally redigitizes ProStitcher. That function, the baseline function, will literally redigitize this design just as though it was always digitized this way. So real important to use that when you're doing these kinds of more advanced ProStitcher custom stuff. All right, so now we need to get this to fit in here. So since I have an area, I can kind of get this position by going to modify, align, and we'll do center and then top. And that kind of pins it to the top here for me. So let's refresh, but clearly way too big. So baseline, I'm not going to baseline it. I do not want to baseline that, and there's a reason. If I don't baseline it, it stays pinned here. So when I go to modify, resize, and I'm going to use a lock, and then I start resizing, see how it's pinned here? That's what I want. So I'm just going to resize it down, and I kind of know after playing with this a few times, and this is the whole thing, it's like, okay, Patty, how far do you resize this down to? How do you know? Well, you don't know exactly. You just have to play around with it, because I need 4 of these to go around to form a ring that are either going to be able to be connected or close. They don't have to connect. We don't have to stitch this out as one single connected baseline flattened design. Don't need to. And in fact, it may be more advantageous for you to stitch it out in 4 or 2 pieces. You might have better alignment and positioning options if you do that. But I'm going to show you, this just happens that if we get this down to, I think it's, I want to say in my fiddling, I think it was 6.13. Enter. Baseline that. Okay, so I believe that was the right size. We'll see. I can click my select button. I'm going to move it kind of down, and let's zoom in. Zoom is your friend with custom work. And I'm kind of looking to make sure nothing is stitching over my area. Now, in real life, this square, this inner diamond, would not be on the screen. You would have an area around your outer sashing. So how do you know if this little point is going to stitch into the middle square of your block? Okay, good question. What you know is you put your hands on the handlebar and you look at the screen. Don't look at your quilt. Look at the screen and move your crosshairs to that kind of tip edge there. Okay, you've got your crosshairs on there on the screen. Now look down at your quilt. See where your needle is. If your needle is still in your sashing and not in your block, you're good. So that's kind of the double check, positioning double check you do a lot of when you're doing custom quilting. You're positioning your crosshairs on the screen. Yes, you have your hands on your handlebars, obviously, because that's the only way you can move your crosshairs. Position that crosshair and then look down at your screen and say, oh, okay, my needle is still in the sashing. It's not going into my block. I'm good. Okay, so we've got this positioned reasonably well. I'm not too worried about it yet because I'm not going to stitch it out. Again, I'm going to baseline because I was moving it around. That's a modification or an edit. It would have been just the same as me using modify reposition and using any of these or my nudge arrows. If you put your finger on this and you move it around, you're making this happen. You're making modify reposition happen. That's an edit or a modification. You need a baseline. Alrighty. So I like this. I'm going to do a file, save, selected, and this is a process you should get in the habit of doing, is when you're doing custom quilting, save in incremental steps so you don't lose something. So if it's not working when you're further down the road, you can go back to your first step and start over at the first step without having to start all over again. So I'm going to save it. I want to save it to my flash drive. You know, I always tell you don't save things to your tablet C drive. Save it to a flash drive. So let's collapse my C drive. I just clicked the down arrow to collapse the C drive, and there's my D drive. And I would probably make a folder, and I'd call it Nancy's Quilt. Create, and I just did that by clicking on the folder plus sign, and now on my D drive I have a new folder saying Nancy's Quilt, and I would just say resize, give it a different name. I'm just going to add an extra word to the end of it because I want to know I used this design but it's changed in some way. I resized it, I also rotated it, so I'm going to save it. So that way I don't have to go back through all that rotation, all that resizing. This design is good to go. Okay, we're good. So now let's see. I need to get another one here, another one here, and another one here, and I want to see if I can connect them all. So let's go to Edit. We're going to duplicate it. Okay, and then we're going to have to rotate it twice clockwise. And then I'm going to put my finger on the screen and I'm going to drag it down. And I'm going to kind of just position it here. And oh, look at that. It looks pretty close. So let's see how close we are. Again, remember I said zoom's your friend when you're doing custom quilting. So I'm going to zoom way in. Okay, so it's pretty close. And if I zoom back out a wee bit, scroll down, you see I have my scroll bars on. I also have my ruler on, which is very helpful. Where are those things? They're in your View tab, scroll bar, and rulers. Okay. So let's see. Okay, I have some, this one is, I just sort of guesstimated position, but I'm real close to the edge, so I have some scooch room this way, don't I? So let's connect these two pieces, shall we? How do we do that? Okay, let's go back to our workspace. Tab in the right sidebar, and I want to place my crosshairs on the end point of my first design. So let's select my first design. There's the end point. And then I'm going to put my hands on the handlebars and I'm going to move my needle to that end point. But I want to be very accurate. Zoom is your friend in custom quilting. You're going to get tired of me saying that. I was close, but I wasn't right on. So let's get it because you really want that to be dead on. Okay, I'm happy with that. Now, I'm zooming back out because I want to show you. I would drop my needle down in my quilt. That way your machine isn't going to move because you're doing this in front of your machine. I'm doing it in Simulate, but you are going to be doing it in front of your machine. This is really not something you want to do in simulation. This is something you want to do in front of your machine because your quilt is a fluid thing. Your area may not be this perfect diamond area, and you want to make sure everything is fitting correctly. So in order for your crosshairs to stay planted, drop your needle down. It won't move. Now I want to get this design's start point right on top of the end point of the first design. So let's select our second design. And you can see it's slightly off, right? Let's zoom in. Okay, I need that to be over here. So I'm going to go to Modify Reposition. And if I click on Start Point, that's me telling Pro Stitcher, hey, I want you to take this design start point and reposition it to the crosshairs. Remember, that's how Modify Reposition works. The reposition tool will reposition a selected design to your crosshairs in some fashion. And these are all the ways we can do it, but I'm going to use start point. So when I click on that, it moves this design to my crosshairs. All right, let's zoom back out. Now, get my crosshairs off so you can see. Let's see how close I got the start point, and we can kind of zoom in and see how close I came. So let's zoom in. Okay, so let me select my first design, and I want you to look at the start and stop points as I flip back and forth between the first design, second design. They look like they are right on top of each other. I think I did a good job. So let's see if I really did. Let's try to combine these two designs. To do that, I want to use my select tools down here. This is select all, multi-select, and select none. So I'm going to select none. And then I'm going to go to my very helpful right sidebar workspace tab that you're going to use over and over again with custom work. And I'm going to select the first design, and I want this one to stitch out first because remember, start point's over here. I want it to go around in a circle. So this design has to be selected first. So I'm going to select this design, and then I'm going to select this design, my second one. And when I select the second one, if I got these on top of each other, this will turn to a black square. Whoops, let's try that again. We want select none, then multi-select, select my first design, then my second design. Don't worry about this, it's just artifact. I got my black square, I'm good to go. I'm super happy with how this turned out. Turn off, multi-select. Remember, this is an on-off tool, so you got to turn it off. And then we're going to baseline it. Again, it has flattened this design. Now it's one big design. I haven't done any, there's no rotation, resizing, repositioning. All those commands are gone. All those modifications have been cleared away. Redigitize this just as though it were digitized this way to start with. Love this. This is great. File, save, member, incremental saves. And so let's clear that name, and we'll call it, it's not Daisy, cornflower half diamond. Whatever you want to name it, whatever makes sense to you. All right. Can we get lucky and make this a full circle? Probably. In reality, is that the best way to stitch it out? Depends. Depends how big your quilt is. Remember, this quilt is some of this might be on the bias like this. There might be some stretching going on. It might be more advantageous to stitch out half and then stitch out the second half. You can try to stitch out the whole ring. So let's see, we'll go to edit. Let's duplicate this half. Okay, I'm going to go to modify. We're going to do the same thing we did before. Rotate, and rotate this 4 times. Okay, I'm going to select it and kind of move it so you can see where I want it to go. So I want this start point to land on top of this section's endpoint. Remember? So let's go back to our handy dandy workspace tab. Let's select our first half diamond. Let's get our hands on the handlebars, move our needle to the end point. We're pretty close. Zoom is your friend in custom quilting. We're going to zoom way in. See, it wasn't that close. I'm going to put it right on that stop point. Okay, drop your needle. Now we want to get this design start point on top of the crosshair. So let's select that design because that's one we want to reposition. Modify, reposition, start point, baseline. Remember, got a baseline. And then we're going to select none, go back to our workspace tab and select them in correct order. So I want this one to stitch out first. Remember, start point's here. We want this to go around in a circle. So multi-select, select your first half, your second half. I did a good job. I got a black square. Turn off multi-select, baseline, file, save, selected. Okay, let's clear that name and we'll call it cornflower diamond fold. Okay, now I have those incremental saves. Now I would make sure this is positioned. So I go to modify, align, and I would just click center. You saw it shift a tiny, tiny bit. And then I would take my needle and I would start checking all of these points. Again, zoom is your friend. You want to zoom in and then check this. And then you can go up here and maybe check this guy. And then maybe go up into the corner and check this guy. And you're going to check all the way around your design. You can zoom back out, check all the way around, because remember, things, this is simulation. It's perfectly square. Your area will not be. Now, somebody's going to ask me, can you use skew? No, you cannot use skew to skew this in. It will not skew in. It'll do something weird. But you can use modify, reposition, and use your nudge arrows to reposition it. You might have to resize it a teeny tiny bit. You might have to take the lock off and just resize the width or the height. These are all your tools that you can use in your tool bag of Pro Stitcher to make something like this fit in. Now, it just happens the design Dorothy picked is gonna fit probably, and I used her measurements. The only thing is my sashing is a little bit skinnier, so that's good. It's actually got a little more wiggle room, but that's how this should work for Dorothy. If she can get this positioned and it's going to stitch out not weirdly and she can do the full circle, great. If not, just do half of it and then reposition the second half and get it as close as you can. You might need to create a new area and it would be all the way around. You'd probably start here and do an area all the way around and then come back and do the inner. So you would have kind of like a C area tipped on its side. And then this wall of the area, you would want the wall of the area to bisect the start point of this design. So you can get this design's endpoint to land here. Another tip when you are stitching a design on a quilt that looks like this, where you have a lot of stuff that may be on bias, is to baste, because that will help prevent the quilt from shifting. So baste first, create your area. That way things won't move so much as you're stitching this out. So I hope that was helpful. And hopefully you'll be able to use that in the future for custom quilting, trying to create a sashing either in a square or on point. And it's going to take a lot of trial and error, a lot of playing around. If you find that you're doing an awful lot of playing around on your feet, you can go to Simulate on your laptop, sit down, relax, take your dimensions with you like I did. Dorothy gave me the dimensions. See if you can get something to work. If you can get it to work, write your steps down, then you can go to your machine and say, okay, I resized this corner design this one that we opened, when I rotated it, I resized it to 6.13 in simulation, and it worked perfectly. So then you can take that information to your machine, repeat it at your machine, and you should have full success. So hope that was helpful. Have fun, practice. Good for you, Dorothy, that you kept at it. And I hope that helps others. Happy quilting.